As we begin this conversation, what I'd like to say to you is that to say Indian people do something is just a not appropriate comment, because with 500 plus nations, independent nations in this country, really there's 550 plus, to say that Indian people do something just can't be said, because every one of our tribes, every one of our nations has a different way of doing things. We have different cultures, we have different languages and different traditions and different beliefs, and so we have to be very careful as we do this conversation so that we don't generalize, because of what I believe is called the uniqueness of each tribe and the respect and the handling of tradition and tobacco in those traditional ways. We come from a little place, I come from a little place called Gray Horse, Oklahoma, and it's our community, it's our reservation, it's part of our reservation down in Oklahoma. And the belief that there are no reservations in Oklahoma is just not correct, because we are we are the only one, according to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, in the state of Oklahoma. And the village that I'm from, I mentioned, is Gray Horse. We have two other villages, Hominy and Pahuska. And our Osage ways, there's a lot of things that are involved in our Osage ways. And I do want you to know that my father is George Tallchief. And that's one of the things that we often ask when we meet people is who's your family? You know, who's your grandma? Who's your grandpa? My dad is George Tallchief, and he is the former chief of the Osage tribe, and he's the former president of the Osage National Council. And so he's led our people for many years. And in our village, where I come from, we have ceremonies called Ilonshka. And it's our traditional ways, it's our traditional dance that we have always in June. And my son was our drum keeper in our village for a number of years. His name is Russ, and he was our drum keeper, and which meant that our family had the responsibilities of those traditional ways. And right now as we're speaking, Russ is now on committee on our dance committee, on our ceremonies, as a tail dancer, and I sit on the committee as a committeeman. And so we'll be dancing about 12 days in the month of June. And my father comes and joins us, and he's 90 years old now, but he's very healthy and doing good things. And so we are Osage from Osage County in Oklahoma. The history of tobacco among many of our people, and so I'm going to try to hedge those comments by saying many or some, but I will never say all people or all tribes, because it's not true. But among many of our people, tobacco has always been viewed as a very sacred plant and used in those ways and used respectfully. You know that tobacco was here and grew wild, we're told, in the old days, and our people used it for ceremonial purposes. And there's a lot of stories that go along with those ceremonies. Sometimes we're told that tobacco, when you smoke tobacco, and however you smoke tobacco, whether it's in a pipe or whether you roll it in a paper or whatever you do, that when you smoke that and you pray with that plant, you pray with that sacred plant, and that smoke, as it rises, it takes those prayers up to the Creator. And that's one of the things that smoke is about. You know, historically, I did not hear a lot of stories among our Osage people about the use of tobacco. Many of our people are sweat lodge people, and tobacco is a part of that ceremony. When we go into the sweat, that it's used in there. I am not a peyote person, but I understand and I'm told that tobacco is a part of the Native American church. And so, having not been there, I don't really feel like I can say much about that, but that's what I'm told. And I have family members that go in, and my son and my daughter and some of those folks, they go into the teepee, but I've never gone. Been invited, just have never had, just never went. So today, in today's times, when we talk about the use of tobacco, we're not talking about that traditional tobacco with no additives and things. We like to, and when we can find it, we use it. but it's not readily available. There are a few people that grow natural tobacco and with no additives and no supplements of any kind. And whenever you can find it, boy, you really guard that and you take real good care of it. But oftentimes at events, or if somebody wants to ask you to do something, or they come to you and they will bring tobacco. And different tribes, you know, because when you're from one tribe that doesn't do some things and someone comes to you from another tribe, they may bring their ways to you and you have to respect that. And so often we're asked about, the government now says every grant that you write has to have, I'll come back to tobacco, but it has to have something in the area of cultural competence. And you've been writing grants and you know that. And so the word cultural competence is always really an interesting word, because competence to me means you've got to have a level of expertise. To me, that's a high level of expertise to be able to call yourself competent. And when we talk about competence in Oklahoma with Indian people, there are 39 tribes located in Oklahoma. And to attempt to be culturally competent with 39 tribes is just not possible. And so what we ask people to do, instead of trying to achieve cultural competence, because they can't, they should attempt to achieve cultural respect. And cultural respect, to me, is the cornerstone for everything that we do as Indian people and as people in general. Because when someone comes to me, for example, at a dance or at an event or at a ceremony, and they bring tobacco, whether it's me or whoever, when you watch that, they'll bring tobacco and they'll offer it to you. Maybe they'll just hand you a cigarette. There's one chairman who comes sometimes and brings a cigar because it's tobacco, and he'll give it. And when I've watched him do it, and we've done it together, and he'd say, I want you to take care of this for me and do these things. And by giving that tobacco, it's a gift and it's an honor. And so that honor you try in every way to respect and to fulfill the request, whatever that may be, whether it's to serve as head man dancer, or whether it's to conduct a particular event, or whether it's to serve as the master of ceremonies, whatever it may be. You try to fulfill those requests, especially if tobacco was a part of that conversation. You know, one of the things that we often see with many of our drum groups, and it's not just the drum groups down in Oklahoma, but it's from some of the drum groups from up north, you know, on up along the Canadian border and in those northern states, because the tobacco seems to be, and again, I'm not an expert on their ways, but tobacco seems to be an important part of what they do. And I see drum groups many times using tobacco smoke to blow on their drum, to bless that drum and to purify that drum, and to put heart back in that drum. And I will also see, many times I'll see singers where they'll sprinkle tobacco on that drum, and they'll leave it there. Sometimes they'll put it around the outside of the drum, on the floor, on the ground, and leave it there. And as they sing, sometimes you'll see the sticks hit the top of that drum, and you'll see that tobacco begin to dance on top of that drum, and it's really a special sight. So it's used in a lot of ways. Also, when somebody does offer tobacco to you and you choose to smoke part of some of that tobacco, when you're through with what you've used, you make sure that you return it to Mother Earth. You take it out and you put it into the ground. You know, you don't just crush it on the concrete with your foot. You literally make sure that the fire is out, and you put the remaining tobacco into the ground, on the ground, so that can go back to where it came from. In the use of tobacco among our young people, the research indicates that there's a tremendous, that Indian people use tobacco more than many other groups. And I think that part of that is the historical significance of tobacco. I also think that the research about the negative things that tobacco brings to you were not necessarily readily to our Indian people, to folks that were in rural communities and folks that were on reservations, because just the word wasn't getting there. And as we learn more and more about what that is, we're beginning to see that word getting out to our people.